afternoon, Rotary. Again, I'm William Murdock. I'm really privileged and humbled to be your lunchtime speaker. Before I talk about anything about Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, let me just say I'm so humbled and amazed to be sitting here at this table and hearing about the work of your Rotary, everything from polio to scholarships to working with veterans, to delivering dictionaries to every student in the third grade in Columbus Public Schools. And I know I'm forgetting a bunch of others, but that work really is the glue that holds our community together and advances it forward. So thank you for what you do, and I'm so impressed with that. Also, thanks, Chuck, for the kind introduction. Chuck is one of a few people here who have come ahead of us in planning the future of this region that we live in and work in, and the legacy that they have is something that we're benefiting from today, and the path that they've paved is something that continues to leave us lots more to do and lots of opportunities and challenges as we go forward. In sitting down with Chuck a number of times, he knows about almost everything in this town and how it happened from a physical environment or a building standpoint. And if you don't believe me, try to stump him, and he will be able to tell you that. He mentioned our former executive director, Bill Habig, too, and for those of you who worked with him, he's still doing well. I'm only the third executive director of MORPC. He was the first for over 30 years, and yes, he's still on my board, and he's still working to advance what we do in Central Ohio. So a great debt of gratitude to him as well. So what I want to talk to you about today is this organization called MORPC, and give you a flavor for the different types of things we're working on as we think about and plan for and help Central Ohio get ready for its future. And I'm going to go through a number of different things that we're doing because we are an organization that's not often in the news. We're often behind the scenes, and that's fine, providing technical support and collaboration support and community support for the local governments who are out in front and for our community leaders who are out in front on some of these major issues. So those of you who aren't familiar with MORPC, you should know that we're a voluntary association of 64 local governments in Central Ohio, and that includes every level of local government you can think of, and Ohio loves local government. We have townships, we have counties, we have villages, we have cities, we have regional associations. All of them are on our board. We have these 64 members, and our job is to help bring them together and provide services for them. You might think of us a little bit like a chamber of commerce for local governments, where we host events, we help them make decisions, we help them get engaged with each other, and we provide a level of support that they can't get on their own. We do planning in Central Ohio, and when we say Central Ohio, we have a 15-county outlook. And that means we deliver different services to different counties, but really, Central Ohio has grown a lot in the last few decades. And when we look at the range of influence and the work shed and the commuter sheds of Central Ohio, we're really talking about a really large piece of Ohio here in the center of the state, anchored by Franklin County, and we're just north of 2 million people in that area these days. So our work is really to help these local governments focus on Central Ohio and how to make it better and how to get ahead of growth. We work with them on big transportation issues, and we'll talk about that, everything from people riding bikes to the highways that Chuck mentioned, to freight and rail. We work with them on sustainability, and we do this through a nonpartisan lens. So we're looking at both environmental sustainability, but community sustainability, but also fiscal sustainability, so that we can help our governments become more sustainable themselves as they're working to improve the quality of our life and quality of environment. And we also help them do better at local government. And so again, this is one of those things that if you're not in local government, you might not see, but we help advance them in best practices. That's our organizational chart. We'll get into that. We have about 70 people and are located over near German Village. We have a pretty robust level of involvement. So when we talk about what we're doing, as executive director, I don't get to make the decisions on where the highways go or how we spend our transportation dollars. we get to help organize these committees of local government leaders and community leaders that do that. And we do it in a few major areas. Transportation, if you have a technical ambition or skill set in transportation skill set, we have a committee where you could participate and help us think about our transportation planning. Likewise, if you're a community member and you just care about this and are interested, we also have a committee where you could plug into that too. We have over 24 different community committees in environmental sustainability, everything from air to water quality, data and technology, and we also have a public policy committee as well. So we have several hundred people engaged in these 24 committees. So if any of my committee members are in here, thank you for your service on that. And if Rotary doesn't keep you busy enough and you're looking for a community committee to plug into, certainly know that we'd be welcome to that. I want to talk today about some of the initiatives that we're working on, everything from Rickenbacker to a new focus on data technology to Greenways and more. So let's talk a little bit about growth first. So Central Ohio is growing, and our job at MORPC is, if you worked with us in the past, we did some building and zoning permitting. We don't do that anymore and haven't for a while. What we really do now is we focus on demographic projections and look at growth in all its different aspects so that we can help our community plan better for it. We have a study that's been out for about 2 years now that's still developing called Insight 2050. And what we did is we partnered with the Columbus 2020, the economic development folks in Central Ohio, and a group called ULI who focuses on best practices in real estate development, and our local governments to come together and really think about what's going on in Central Ohio, because quite often in Central Ohio we think of ourselves as kind of a steadily growing, slowly developing area. And what's actually happening is we're growing pretty quickly. And when we look at how quickly that we're growing over the 30-some years to 2050, the growth in Central Ohio is pretty significant. And it doesn't feel like that because we're not growing as fast as, say, in Austin or Charlotte. But really, we're expecting to add about 500,000 people minimum through 2050. Some of our latest projections say we may be adding upwards of 1 million people through 2050. Putting that in perspective, again, we're at a 2 million person region right now. So in the next 30 years, add another 500,000 or add another 1 million people to that, and think about the physical development and the transportation system and the environment and the agriculture that surrounds and supports us. And this growth could have pretty big impacts if we're not planning ahead for it and thinking about how to take advantage of it. When we look at that, it could involve at least 300,000 new housing units, 300,000 new jobs that we'd need to support that population. And if you're in real estate development or construction, we're expecting at least 1 billion square feet of new or redeveloped commercial space that'll be needed to support that growth. These are conservative projections. And again, being a longtime Central Ohio resident, we know that things are good and we know that we're growing. But that slow growth over time is multiplying, and it's actually pitched upward a little bit recently. So that growth is happening even faster than we've been used to. So we're working today to get folks ahead of that. This is also happening at a time that our market is changing. Our demographics are changing. We're expecting our population over 65 to double over the coming years. At the same time, our other highly growing group is the population under 35. So as a region, we're growing older and younger at the same time. This is also happening as we've seen a big shift in what folks expect out of their communities for services, what they expect out of their development. They're looking for more walkable neighborhoods. They're looking for more choices in transportation and housing. They're looking for different types of things from their communities and amenities they haven't asked for before. And so we're adding a bunch of people. They're of different ages than they've been in the past, and their preferences are changing. And so as a city planner, as just a resident of Central Ohio, the next 30 years could be really interesting and really transformative, but only if we're really being thoughtful about how we get ready for that. One of the big ways that we do that is through our work in transportation. And so we're what's called, I work for an acronym, and we're another acronym as part of that. We're a Metropolitan Planning Organization, so an MPO. And what that means is we get to work on the entire transportation system in the core of that region, in Delaware and Franklin counties, and bits of Licking and Fairfield and Union County. Almost all of the federal dollars for transportation flow through the committees that I mentioned at MORPC so that our communities can decide how to prioritize our transportation needs in Central Ohio. We do this over this region, and we have to look pretty comprehensively at how to balance the needs in a growing region, but also a region with 2 million people has a lot of transportation infrastructure on the ground that'll need to be maintained and improved. At the same time, funding is staying flat. So there's a lot of dialogue about how to do this the best way, especially with technology and transportation changing pretty quickly. One way that we're focused on that is thinking about our streets differently. And this is a policy that we call Complete Streets that MORPC and its governments adopted a number of years ago, so that every time we think about a transportation route, we're thinking of it to make sure that the cars are flowing freely, but also making sure we're looking at other users, people in wheelchairs, children, bicycle riders. We're looking at transit users to make sure that every road we're at least thinking about it. And this doesn't mean that we're going to be putting bike lanes along the highways, but it does mean that every time we think about any project, we're looking at what are the impacts on all of these different users so that our transportation system is more robust and really can accommodate all these different needs, both for recreation and people's just personal transportation needs. From the pedestrian all the way to freight, we're also really focused on the Rickenbacker area. And I know that Elaine from the airport was out here a couple of weeks ago. If you didn't hear her talk about this, know that what's happening at Rickenbacker is transformative for Central Ohio. We're actually exporting freight on direct international flights to 3 different continents. And the impact that that has on our region could be immense as we think about how that serves businesses who are export-oriented, how that makes this a destination for some businesses that we hadn't been before. And part of our job at MORPC is working with those local governments is to get them all to think about how to take advantage of that. And we did this about 10 years ago with a plan on the infrastructure. Actually, in those 10 years, all of the things that we'd hoped to get done were either done, and those that didn't end up being good ideas weren't done. So it's time for us to think about it again. And we have a study that involves about 15 different communities and organizations looking at the area around the Rickenbacker Airport to really think about the transportation infrastructure, the economic development. There's also a need for workforce housing that we're going to try to quantify and look at. And also a focus on sustainability with sustainable energy and other sources and utilities to make sure that that area, when that growth starts coming, and it already is, make sure that it's really prepared both for the influx of businesses, but also so that we're thinking 2 steps down the road to really position this to be even more of an international driver for our region. And this affects you whether or not you're on the southern part of Franklin County or not, because we work with local governments and businesses across those 15 counties who all market themselves as close to Rickenbacker. And if they're within a half an hour or an hour, they might as well, because that is a resource that the rest of Ohio doesn't have access to and is one of the largest airports like that in the country. So we work with pedestrians and bicyclists and highways and freight, but we also are thinking ahead on the future with transportation. And if you live or if you've spent any time in Columbus this summer, you know that Columbus was named the U.S. Department of Transportation's Smart City. And this effort is called Smart Columbus. What's so exciting about this is there's been a groundswell of transportation technology changes in the last few years that are very quickly reshaping the transportation environment that we have to plan for. Things like Uber and Lyft, ride sharing, bike sharing. We have new tools to look at congestion and to map that out. But we also have an onslaught of technologies coming around autonomous vehicles or vehicles that talk to each other and transportation infrastructure that talks to both of them. This could have really profound impacts on our safety, on our congestion, on our ability to use our transportation system. And the neat thing is Smart Columbus gets $50 million from the federal government and a large foundation called the Vulcan Foundation, and $90 million of private sector support to really make Columbus the hub where a lot of these new technologies can be tested out. This is really exciting, and no, you're not going to see everything change to self-driving in the next year. But when we look at the pace of what's coming, Smart Columbus is going to look at electric vehicle infrastructure. There's a big move towards that, looking at ways to connect data in different ways between infrastructure and people and businesses, looking at autonomous vehicles and how these things are deployed both in the downtown area, in Easton, in a residential neighborhood, and around Rickenbacker. The focus here is on safety. It's on people, and Columbus won the competition because we really wanted to make sure that these technologies were thought of in terms of ways to improve the economy and transportation for some of our highly impacted neighborhoods like Linden. But also, it's really focused on that technology and moving it forward. And some of the announcements that we've seen in the transportation sector lead us to believe in the next 5 years to 10 years, this whole sector could be completely reimagined with manufacturers moving to all-electric vehicles. Some manufacturers already have autonomous technologies. Many of you probably drive cars that already can have some level of knowledge about the environments or different safety features you didn't have a year or two ago. The pace of this really is increasing. MORPC is a transportation organization, but we're also an energy organization. And so we work on energy infrastructure and energy forecasting for Central Ohio. And we're actually doing a study with Franklin County right now on how to look at energy efficiency. This is an environmental issue, but it's also an air quality issue because energy production causes air quality problems. But it's also a financial issue for local governments. You'd much rather have them having energy efficiency technologies and saving dollars on those investments that they can use for other community services. We also have a pretty robust effort where we work with our utilities to help low-income families actually have energy efficiency improvements installed in their homes. Over 15,000 communities in the last 20 years have benefited from that. So energy is actually an infrastructure system that has taken up a lot of our focus as we think about it as a complement to transportation. Especially with Smart City, there's going to be a really big push to electric vehicles. This is getting out in front of the market, but making sure that we have the energy infrastructure to support that is going to be an important part of whether or not we succeed with that effort. We also are focused on data and technology, and if you don't know it, a lot of the roads and major interchanges in Central Ohio are underlaid by fiber and technology around transportation. And there's a lot of focus on how we can, of course, connect all those to make sure our transportation systems got more information and is helping to reduce congestion, but also looking at that as a community asset. If we've got pipes in the ground that are moving data, is that something that we can leverage more as a region? And so we're focused on that as well at MORPC. I did mention that the population in Central Ohio of folks over 65 and older is going to double as we get to 2050. This is something that could, again, have really profound impacts as how we think of ourselves as a community and how we deliver community services. And so to get in front of that, we've partnered with the City of Columbus in a really robust effort to look at aging, and both not just as a challenge with providing additional services to people as they get older, but also as an opportunity. If we have a very large group of very active people over 65, there's information telling us they're going to be more entrepreneurial, more engaged in the community, and how can we take advantage of that at the same time as making sure that the community's delivering the services to accommodate folks as they age. This is a big effort that affects everything from infrastructure to transportation to city services and more. And what we hope to do is by the end of next year have a set of recommendations that communities across Ohio can begin to implement to get us out in front of this pretty major demographic shift. And the last big thing that's going on at MORPC that I want to mention, there has been an amazing delivery of bikeway and greenway systems in Central Ohio. And what's really interesting about this is it's come together slowly over the last 20 or 30 years. But now that some of those connections are being made along Alum Creek with the bike trail, along the Olentangy River, We're seeing what's interesting here is we've got over 100 of these dedicated bike trails in Central Ohio. And the one thing that we hear consistently from the community is, please build more, or why aren't there more connections, or why isn't there one closer to my neighborhood? And to keep up with that, we've got an effort called the Central Ohio Greenways Board, and they've just recently come together. This is a multi-county effort to look at those dedicated bike trails and the connections to them, and really think about it from not just a leisure transportation standpoint, but also from an active health standpoint. Getting people out on trails, walking or biking, can help with obesity and other issues, but also a workforce transportation issue. They're trying right now to do what's been done in other regions, which is really raise a lot of money and focus efforts on building connections between bike trails that we don't have, so that the system just becomes that much easier to use. We look at other regions like Houston or Philadelphia, where they've raised tens of millions of dollars from the private and foundation sector because of the health nature of bike trails, to help fill in the gaps in the bike system. And there's no reason that a region of 2 million people can't do the same thing here in Central Ohio. So we're working on connecting that. So really, that's what I wanted to share with you about what MORPSE's doing. A lot of the times, like I said, we're the strategic technical group that's supporting local governments, but we bring everybody from the city of Columbus to small villages with just a few hundred people to the table to think comprehensively about where we're going. We work with them on collaborating on policies, on new tools, and really to help them think about sustainability in different ways. And that's what we're working on, and hope to be planning ahead for the next few decades to make this an even better place. So with that, I'll pause and see what kind of questions you might have.
25 years ago, I called MORPSE to find out where to place my wife's new dental office. I asked, what's the growth area? And they nailed it dead on. They said, POW. Now, how did they know that? What criteria do you use?
Sure. So the question is how MORPSE can advise folks on where development is coming. That is something that we have to be really focused on, because we're making transportation systems that are transportation decisions that look out a few decades. And so we do demographic forecasting. We look at every building permit. We look at the zoning for all of our communities, and really have a pretty sophisticated system that makes an educated guess, if you will, on where population is going. One of the changes that we've seen since the last time that your wife asked about that is we've seen a lot more activity in the downtown area than maybe we'd seen in the past. But that is something that we do. And so if you are curious on what part of the region is going to develop, we've got some good guesses based on a lot of data and input that comes from the ground. This isn't something that we just take federal data and plug it in. We actually work with all our communities to look at these local trends.
This region is saturated with a lot of oil and gas pipelines, and they all have right-of-ways. Some of the rural counties in our area, the internet connectivity is just non-existent. It seems like that would be a natural marriage, and even for the best interests of the oil and gas companies to use that right-of-way for fiber. Is there any chance of making that progress?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So the question was about using oil and gas right-of-ways as maybe a way to get fiber and internet throughout the region, in rural areas especially. I know there's a lot of focus on that. I don't know specifically about energy right-of-ways, but I know when it comes to other forms of infrastructure like transportation or that, those right-of-ways are always on our maps. So I can find out more and let you know.
You talked about aggressive growth numbers for Central Ohio, but those really being the floors. What do you see as the biggest obstacle to growth in the near term for Central Ohio?
Sure. So the question's about growth and being an obstacle to growth. And so when we talk about 500,000 people, 2/3 of that are just the people who are here, just living longer and their kids. So the biggest variable is going to be on the in-migration, and we're the only area in Ohio that has in-migration. What could threaten that or halt that is something that we're really focused on, I think, among a couple different regional organizations, and there's a crisis in housing affordability that's happening. After the Great Recession, there's been a lull in getting this. I know you've heard from Jim Hills recently. He probably talked about there's no lots available. Housing costs are going up, and if they climb too quickly, it doesn't just hurt the residents who are here, it makes us less attractive as an in-migration destination. So that's a big concern. The other concern is all transportation is if we don't get out in front of that growth, we could end up, and with no disrespect to our peers in Charlotte or Austin, we could end up in the same situation where our growth chokes future growth. So that is something that we're worried about.
So Bill, as a segue within the sense of transportation that you're talking about, and thank you very much for your coverage and informative presentation here, but you've avoided the discussion of rail systems. Sure. I can't help but think maybe purposefully relative to the electric car coming about. Would you please give us your stance relative to rail transportation, and if and when it's going to be something else in the smart car, what kind of turnaround is that going to be? 30 to 40 years we've wanted to be in the rail system area. You know where the communities are. We could easily have had rail systems feeding those communities right along the way, but we keep forestalling it and it keeps becoming more and more costly. Where does MORPC stand up?
So the question is about rail or mass transit, and did I avoid talking about it in my presentation? The answer is no, but so I'm willing to talk about it. So this is something that we think about a lot at MORPC because Central Ohio is the largest region in the state, or one of the largest regions in the state, and we're growing quickly. Mass transit is going to be really important. And when I say mass transit, that could mean rail, that could mean something new. We actually have the benefit now with technology that whether it's autonomous buses that are fully electrified or light rail, the point is, can we move a lot of people quickly on something that looks or feels like light rail? And I know that our plan contemplates a number of corridors. The city and CODA both have plans coming out here in the next few months that we think will address that. So if I can tell you anything, and I'm not dodging your question, Mark, stay tuned. There's a lot more coming on this. So. One more question. Okay, one more question.
You foresee an outer belt?
Okay, so the question is, do I foresee an outer belt? And I will tell you this unequivocally, I don't think so. I don't think we'll see one in Central Ohio, and here's why. The cost of an outer belt could be billions and billions of dollars that aren't in the foreseeable future when we look at the needs that we already have and the needs to upgrade the system that we already have that's not fully built out. But the other piece of it is, aside from the disruption, putting an outer belt might shift growth outside of our existing communities. It might disrupt a lot of agriculture. But really, when we look at these autonomous and self-driving cars and that technology, some of what we're seeing is that those cars may be able to increase the capacity of our existing highways by 3 or 4 times. And so the last thing that I think we would want to do as a region is invest in a new highway when we may not actually need it, because the demand won't be there because of our technology has improved. So I'll tell you that our current plans don't contemplate anything like that. And so it's an interesting question, but I just don't think we'd get there. So, and with that, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill, on that very informative presentation. Thank you again. Take up the challenge of Rotary this week.